Hi, this is Maria, and I'm really excited today because today is the day I've been waiting for. My book, Butterfly Hollow, has been released, and it's on Amazon for $8.99 as a physical paperback book. And so soon, shortly, to be an ebook. But anyways, I'm excited because I'm here at my book launch party at author C. Sonberg Larson's home. And so I'm so happy that you're here to celebrate with me.
So tell us, Maria, how long have you been writing?
I've been writing for, I think it's been something like 20 plus years, around 22 years. I started writing, actually I was around 30 years old, and one morning I woke up and I wasn't feeling well. And so it took 18 months to diagnose that I had a thyroid problem. But during that time I started writing poetry, some really bad poetry. But one of my first pieces that I wrote was my own epitaph. And I went and handed it to doctors once I was diagnosed with this rare thyroid disorder that I have, which I don't think is so rare anymore. But anyways, that's what got me started. And once I was diagnosed, my husband literally pushed me out the door, and I took my first creative writing class. I started going to night school, took every English class that I could take, from English 101 to Chicano literature to Shakespeare to children's literature. And I fell in love with children's lit, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, to leave words for children.
So where did the idea for Butterfly Hollow come from?
The idea for Butterfly Hollow came from, actually, I worked for a newspaper. I was a staff writer at the San Bernardino County Sun. And one of my jobs was to write a Sunday column called Family Outing. And I had gone to, I believe it was a museum in Los Angeles. I can't remember the name, History Museum, something like that, LA History Museum. But anyways, aside from that, there was a butterfly garden, and I thought that sounds really cool to write about. So I went there, and there were a bunch of kids, like a group of kids, and a tour guide, a docent, who literally showed the children how to handle butterflies. And I was watching, and he told them to put their finger down at a slant and to watch the butterflies be very still. And the butterflies climbed onto their fingers. And so it was within the same month. I had actually quit my job. I knew I was going to leave the newspaper to pursue writing for children. And so I'd gone to Tennessee to my son's wedding. And my husband and I, we stopped just, sightseeing, over by Cades Cove. It's just so beautiful in the Smoky Mountains. And we started walking along the creek, and all of a sudden this flurry of, I thought they were leaves that just flew in front of my face. Well, actually, it was a swarm of butterflies that I had disturbed when I was walking on the, among the leaves right by the creek. And so I watched them slowly float down, and they sort of reminded me of potato chips. That's what came to my mind. And they landed, and there were these great big yellow swallowtail butterflies. So I went ahead and put into practice what I'd learned just a few weeks prior to that. And so I put my finger down, and the butterfly hopped on and walked across my knuckles. And actually, if you look at the back of the book, there's a picture of me with the butterfly right on my finger. At that time, I didn't know that a year later, that I would start writing this short story, which would one day turn into Butterfly Hollow.
How long did it take you to write that first draft?
The first draft took me about a year. I quickly learned about the Society of Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI, which is based in Los Angeles. And so I had joined a critique group, and I just started going every week. I made the commitment, and I just started writing, and they started helping me out. And I took a class. It was a picture book class, as I recall, and I ended up writing a short story. And here, I brought it with me to share. It was initially called Hard Chick 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 Chick. And you can see how thin it is, and really it wasn't a picture book, but I didn't know. I just wrote a short story. And I got some really nice comments here, and some of the other students in the class said to me, Maria, this is not a picture book, this needs to be a novel. Well, at the time, I didn't think I had enough words in my head to write a novel, but I went ahead and gave it a try.
So let's talk about the story itself. The story takes place in the South. Why did you choose the South? And why did you choose to set the story during the Great Depression?
Okay, I love the South. I don't know why. I was born and raised in Southern California, which is about 2,000 miles away from where Butterfly Hollow takes place in Tennessee. But in those days when I was growing up, I think I liked a lot of movies with that Southern flavor, like the Tammy movies or Gone with the Wind. I loved the dialect. There was just something about it that I really loved. So in the beginning, I didn't really know it was going to take place in the South. But when I started the writing, it just felt natural to me. I also had read a picture book called Harvey Potter's Balloon Farm. And it also has a flavor of the South and a young girl who learns how to grow balloons from a farmer. And so I thought, you know, I really like that. I love that book so much that I've worn it out. The pages are falling out. So I knew that my character, once I started writing, took on that voice of a Southern girl. And like I said, I was born and raised in Southern California. My roots go deep here. I had no idea that I would end up in Tennessee. And as it has it, our eldest son married a girl from Tennessee. And so soon after, he was married in 2000, I think it was 2001 or 2002, but we had took our trip to Tennessee for the wedding, and that's when I had that experience with those large butterflies. And so I knew that I was going in the right direction. And what was the second question? Why did I choose the Great Depression? The Great Depression, that was a really difficult time. And when I started writing Butterfly Hollow, I didn't know, nobody knew that we were going to go into this great recession that our country has been experiencing the last 5 years or so. And so all of a sudden it was like, I think readers and young people could relate to Charlene even more. There was a lot of lack during the Great Depression, just like during the recession, that maybe children were watching what their parents were going through. But Charlene, there's a lot of things going on in her family. Her father is accused of a murder that she believes that he did not commit. So there is the Great Depression, aside, and plus what's going on in her personal life, acts as an antagonist in the story also. An antagonist doesn't always have to be a person, although Butterfly Hollow has its share of antagonists.
So how did you come up with your cast of characters?
Cast of characters. Actually, I probably have more characters. I probably could have added more. I just had so much fun. Charlene, I think she takes on some of my own characteristics and probably some that I wish I would have had as a child. She speaks her mind. Of course, she's an only child, and there's Mama and Daddy, so we have the family unit. The town itself has a colorful cast of characters, kind of like Mayberry, and where everybody knows everybody. One instance, I was at the LAX airport heading for Tennessee to visit my son, and I met this elderly woman, and we got to talking, and I started telling her about my novel, and she seemed interested, and she began telling me when she was young, in her small town, there was a man named Dirty George. Well, naturally, the name Dirty George just catches my attention. And she said that he wore overalls, and he didn't like to take a bath, and he would put a little can inside the bib pocket of his overalls, and when he would chew tobacco, he would open up his pouch pocket there, and he would just spit right into it. And so that earned him the name Dirty George. So I had to put Dirty George in this cast of characters. He doesn't have a large part, and some characters just have like cameo roles, but they do make up the flavor of Butterfly Hollow.
Is the main character anything like you?
Yeah, I just mentioned that I think she was, or is. I'm one of the younger children in my family. I'm one of the youngest in the family. And so I do have a tendency to speak my mind. And when I was growing up, I did get in trouble for that a lot, especially coming from a Latina household. We weren't encouraged to express ourselves and give our opinions. Our opinions weren't always appreciated. And so, yes, that part of Charlene is like me. Charlene, the part that I wish I was more like Charlene was speaking up for myself, standing up for myself. So when Charlene is confronted by a couple of school bullies that she has to contend with on a daily basis, she knows how to take care of herself. And her daddy encourages her to stick up for herself.
Charlene lives in the Hollow, but a lot of the story takes place in the nearby town of Friendly. Tell us about Friendly.
Friendly. I gave that one a lot of thought when I started writing this story. Stephen King's novels, I loved the towns that he has in his novels, the names of the towns. And so I thought, I knew the Hollow would be separate from the town itself, but walking distance. Just like a lot of towns were way back when, during the Great Depression, during that era when there was small towns scattered all across the United States. But she needed to get to town. She needed to get to church in town, to the grocery store. That's where the businesses were, and her school. So Friendly, I thought Friendly fit perfectly because actually pretty much most of the people are very friendly and kind and polite. But there's, like every town has its scoundrels, and so does Friendly. So maybe everything isn't always so friendly and friendly.
Since Butterfly Hollow takes place almost 80 years ago, how did you go about doing your research to bring authenticity into Charlene's world?
The research was the best part. Once I had the first draft done, it was so much fun doing the research. I did all the traditional types of research. We have the online, the Google, and the library, and I bought a lot of books. I also discovered eBay. I had been a big eBayer anyways, buying and selling at that time. And so I went on there and I just started typing in the search bar 1930s, 1934, the Great Depression, things that I was looking for. I found a lot of really neat research, the material that I could use, and I brought something to show. I bought this box, this wooden box. I think I paid something like $50 for it. But all of these letters are from that era, like 1934, 1933, 35. And you can see they're tied with the original little string. There's postcards in here, greeting cards. Also, this came with another little diary that I had found, and it's made out of birch bark, which is really thin like paper. And the person that did this, it looks like a young person. They carved like a little bird, like a little sparrow. And where this has the date 1896, Butterfly takes place in 1934. So I actually used this at the end of the story, and it's a very sweet, tender moment, actually. And so, but you'll have to read the book to see where it fits in the story. And also, movies. The movie channel with the movie classics. I love the movies. And what I was looking for instance, there was a movie called The Picture Snatcher with James Cagney. It was great. I look at the clothing. I pay attention to the way the characters are speaking. I'm looking at props. I'm looking at cars, everything from that era. From that movie, I learned James Cagney was using this really small camera that fit into his sock by his ankle. And I was like, oh, I was surprised. I didn't know a camera could be that small. So I also liked the title, The Picture Snatcher. And I actually borrowed that, not the title, but just I sort of put it into the book because Charlene does meet a photographer at one point, and she decides she wants to be a picture snatcher. And so movies are great, music, anything like that that puts me in that vibe back in the 1930s. Reading books. Out of the Dust takes place during the Great Depression. Just reading lots of books. I did read To Kill a Mockingbird, but not until, oh my goodness, I would say about maybe 5 years ago. I knew about To Kill a Mockingbird, but I'd never read it. And I read it and I loved it. I just love books that take place in the South. There's so many, I can't think of all the titles right now. But yeah, so the research is the best part. A lot of fun interviews. I interviewed my son's mother-in-law in the very beginning. I still have all the original pages. She gave me names. She came from a large family. Some of the names came from her family. Robert Lee, she's in there. Judy Sue, who's snotty Judy Sue, although the real Judy Sue is not snotty. So yeah, so that was a lot of fun. The research is the best part.
Do you deal with racism in your book?
Racism. I wasn't going to. And then when I was at the SCBWI conference and I met with a lot of writers in a writing circle, someone brought that up. And I mentioned it to an editor. No, actually it was an author, I'm sorry. It was this person right here who critiqued my novel in the beginning. And her name is Ellen Howard. And she said she didn't think it was necessary because that's not what the story was about. But once the subject was brought up, as a writer, I thought it was my responsibility to not ignore it. Racism was hot, especially in the South, but I had to handle that very carefully. This book is for children 10 years and older. So the racism comes into play a little bit, and it's from the eyes of Charlene, who is 11, almost 12. So, and Charlene's best friend, Lucy Pruitt, is African American. And that's her very best, dearest friend. And Lucy Pruitt moves to Chicago. And so Lucy Pruitt leaves her African American cloth doll, Hizzy, with Charlene for safekeeping and to remember her by. So that's what you'll see in the cover here. You'll see Charlene holding Hizzy. And and Charlene takes that very seriously to take care of Lucy's doll. And Charlene doesn't understand the grown folks, some of them, not all of them, who are opposed to having her African American friends from Shantytown attend her school. So she doesn't quite understand that. But the school teacher does stand up and says everyone deserves a proper education. So you'll have to read the book again to find out. But yes, I do deal with racism in Butterfly Hollow.
So during the course of the story, what does Charlene want the most, and does she get it?
Okay, what does Charlene want the most? Well, Charlene, I think I've already mentioned this, I may have. If I have, just consider it a Maria rerun. But Charlene, she loves her family more than anything. She loves her family more than anything, with all their flaws, all of their faults, and with these circumstances, unfortunate circumstances that are surrounding her family right now. And so, but through it all, Charlene loves her family. And what she wants most of all is to keep her family together. So when their family is threatened to be torn apart, and is torn apart, Charlene, she wants nothing more than to bring her family back together again and to be a whole family. And it's about the family unit. She just loves them to pieces.
So how many times was this book rejected?
Oh, ouch. Let's see, I would say, I did think about that this morning. I'm going to say, to be honest, probably very close to 100 times. Let's see. I know there was one time I did a mass mailing just for the heck of it to see what would happen. And I researched all the places where I was going to send it to make sure I was sending it to the proper editors and agents who were perhaps looking for this type of work. And so I sent out 60 query letters with sample chapters. It took a while back then. Now you can do that online and it's so much easier for everybody. But I went to the post office, shipped them all off. It cost quite a bit of money. And then all of a sudden they started coming back in the mailbox. I'd go out to the mailbox, there'd be 3, 4, 5. And so, but yeah, close to 100 times. I used to save all of my rejection letters, and then I just stopped. I saved a couple that I felt encouraged me. But otherwise, a lot of times the rejection you would get would just be a standard letter, so you really didn't know what you were doing wrong, and you were trying to second guess them. So I did keep a couple of rejection letters that were encouraging and kept me working.
Did you ever consider giving up?
Did I ever consider giving up? I think every writer does have their low moments in their writing careers. Yes, I would say, but very briefly. I had made a commitment to this story, a commitment to these characters, which over time, I've worked on this novel for about 10 or 11 years, and these people, I call them people, they become very real to you, and you care about them. And I couldn't just stop and leave Charlene hanging. I had a responsibility, and I needed to be accountable, and so I was determined to finish this story. But yes, every writer has their doubts along the way.
So, do you have any advice for other writers?
Yes, I would say read a lot of books, join a critique group, and if that critique group doesn't work, try another one. And if that one doesn't work, start one on your own. That's what I did 10 years ago. We're still going strong. We are Books Born here, and we meet every Saturday. Make that commitment because just like you need to have critique on your work, you need to be committed to the other members in the group also, to be there and available to them to help them with their critiques. Also, I want to say that I did miss a lot of family functions. I was late and sometimes just plain missed them because Saturdays was set aside for critique. I took and do still take my writing very seriously. And so the other advice I would give you is attend workshops, learn the mechanics of writing. And let's see, one more thing. I had a friend, a really dear friend. We were Barbie doll collectors together, and her name was Faye Carose. She's since passed away, and she was about 30 years my senior. But one day, she just said to me, I forgot what we were talking about exactly. I must have been talking some harebrained idea I had or something, and she said, go for it. And no one had ever said those 3 words to me before, go for it. And so I always remember that. I still carry it with me today. What do you have to lose? Go for the dream. If that's what you want, if you want to be a writer or any other kind of artist or anything you do in life, just do your best and go for it and make that commitment. That's what I was saying. So today I'm going to tell you, go for it.